Well, thanks, Jordaan. And just latching on from the soundbite that you've just heard of Secretary General Gwede Mantashe talking about self-serving politicians, he then further said that the NEC has actually suggested that there be an introduction of an ad hoc lifestyle audit for politicians and public servants. And this is to try and hold them accountable, Shahan. But of course, there was a whole variety of other issues, such as the state-owned entities. Specifically mentioned was the SABC and the decision of the board there to hire or appoint, rather, Tlhaudi Motsoeneng to the position that he currently holds at the moment. And the ANC is saying that that particular decision must be revisited by the board. They're also saying that they support the suggestions or the view that there be a parliamentary inquiry on the fitness of the SABC board. But Jordaan, let's talk further now on some of the issues that perhaps weren't addressed in that media briefing because of the rushed nature of that media briefing. And I have the person actually who rushed that media briefing, and that is Zizi Kodwa, who joins me now. Zizi, thank you very much for your time. Let's deal specifically first with our breaking news. Jordaan, the ANC's, should we say, former mayor in Nelson Mandela Bay, today resigning from council. What has prompted this decision? Do you know?
No, we expected that. A week ago, you recall, there was a consultative conference of the region. And in that meeting, it was raised an issue of him, his unavailability in a number of council meetings. And there was a team of comrades who had to speak to him.
Why was he unavailable for a number of council meetings?
There were issues that was raised about the schedule that immediately came, which was a backlog from his other non-executive position as SAFA president, and which clashed with some of the number of other meetings.
But the ANC knew this all along. He, in fact, said that there was never going to be any issues with him being a SAFA president on the one hand and being a mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay. And now, all of a sudden, there are clashes.
You must recall that he's no longer the man who's planning the sitting of the meetings. So in terms of the date and the availability, but it became very clear that he would want to spend more time to deal with organizational issues, particularly in the area of Nelson Mandela, the northern areas, which we thought we should allow and accept that resignation. The region already has accepted that resignation, because there are a number of other comrades whom, in our view, we think that we shouldn't keep Comrade Denny in a space where he thinks that there are other areas where he can perform better, including organizationally, because part of our agenda in Nelson Mandela is to re-energize the base. And this is where he thinks that he can do better to re-energize the base, reclaim the lost ground in a number of areas, particularly in the northern areas.
So, in essence, in a nutshell, and that we want this to come from you, want to hear this from you, the ANC at national level has accepted Denny Jordaan's resignation.
You hear only from me that Denny Jordaan, the former mayor, has resigned, and the African National Congress has accepted his resignation.
All right, let's deal with the matter regarding the ad hoc lifestyle audit. Of course, questions came up here that how will these be different from many other processes that are in government? For example, there are instruments at SARS to try and police this kind of thing. What is it that the ANC is seeking to do here exactly?
You must recall that part of what comes out, the message from the voter, that voter who did not come out and vote the ANC, who decided to stay home. Part of the clear message is that everything that happens outside of the ANC, whether it's in government and so on, a voter directs that to the ANC. Whereas in terms of the government is soft on corruption, people see the ANC. So there are a number of things that we must do as the ANC, the organization, not to duplicate things that are done, even if to duplicate rather, but it's important as the ANC for our own integrity, for our own image, to deal with such a thing. The issue of corruption is quite serious in the African National Congress view that we must deal with it decisively. The perception that our own cadres, they live beyond the means, and therefore it leaves a bitter taste to a number of communities. We must deal with that perception. We are learning from other political parties elsewhere in the world how they've dealt and restored their dignity and restored the confidence of the public to deal with issues of corruption. We think the ad hoc lifestyle audit is but one measure to deal with the perception of corruption, including the reality of perception.
How do you then respond to a cynic or a skeptic who will say that the ANC is indeed soft on issues of corruption? How do they explain their soft stance on what they are saying is a call on the SABC board to review the decision to reappoint Tlhaudi Motsoeneng and the SABC board itself, that it be subjected to a parliamentary process? It talks to the ANC's inability to ensure that its government and some of its deployees in government act in accordance with the law.
What underlines your question is exactly the perception that the African National Congress, sitting here at Luthuli House, must direct SABC. We must call Hlaudi to say resign. We must call the board to say meet today, take a decision. We don't micromanage government, but what is coming very clear is that people expect the African National Congress to take decisive decision.
You don't micromanage government, Zizi, but the Secretary General said here that the NEC, though, has the powers to direct its deployees in government. In that sense, therefore, the ANC has got to give leadership. Do you believe that in the SABC situation, the ANC has honestly given leadership there?
If you look back in terms of the statements we have made on a number of instances about SABC, you will recall and you will appreciate that the African National Congress can only issue a statement and give a directive. And if certain people, because the institutions such as SABC are run through corporate governance, the board, the executive management, if they don't adhere to those directives, there's very little we can do. But we are beginning to appreciate as the ANC. That's why you can see very consistent, tough message coming from the ANC, from Cabinet, again reiterated by the Secretary General today. We are beginning to appreciate that the perception that we are soft on our deployees is resonating with society, and therefore we must be tough.
All right. Just as a final question, Ziz, and we'll let you go. There is a meeting. I did ask a question here earlier to the Secretary General that there is a delegation of kings from the Eastern Cape, and the Secretary General, I'll put it to you, that he was a bit economical with the truth when he said the meeting only started when you guys were coming to the press conference. In essence, in fact, the meeting started at 11, from what we understand. And what are these kings doing here? What is it that they've come here to request?
Well, firstly, I don't think it's correct for you to confirm a meeting in which you are not part of. I can argue to you that the meeting started at 9, not 11, but both of us were not in the meeting. So I don't think we both must make conclusive statement about what had happened. I just went to greet the kings now. They are worshipped, they are honorables. They are still upstairs at the 10th floor, met with the leadership. We couldn't, at the moment, say these are the issues they came. They've been looking forward to meet with the leadership of the ANC on a number of issues. You know, in the Eastern Cape, and unlike any other province, we've got so many kings, more than 6 kings in one province, representing different tribes under the Xhosa nation. And they came to raise a number of issues. You would heard a number of Xhosa kings in different platforms raising many issues. And we thought that perhaps to listen to them on those issues may be important, including, among others, the issues that the remuneration of kings in the area is not the same as other kings in different provinces. That issue also would have come to in the discussions.
Well, all right, just let me cut to the chase and say to you that we were addressed by the man who is facilitating this meeting, and he has said specifically that they've come here to request that the arrested or the imprisoned king of Abatembu, Dalindyebo, must be pardoned by the president. Is that the essence of this meeting? Is that why these kings are here, that they've come to ask for a presidential pardon from President Jacob Zuma, that King Dalindyebo be taken out of jail?
No. I think that would be misdirected if that will be directed at Luthuli House. That issue rests with the President of the Republic.
They're meeting the President as well?
They're meeting the President of the ANC. They're meeting with the leadership of the ANC. If that issue were to be raised, somewhere it has to be raised formally. If we were to appraise the ANC on some of the issues, I'm just mentioned one issue for an example. Their discomfort in terms of remuneration, which differs from one king to the other. That issue they've been raising in a number of platforms. If they did raise the issue they said they were raising in the meeting, it would have been their own organization. As I remember, kings have got ownership of the African National Congress. They feel it's their own organization. If they do raise it, it does not belong at Luthuli House. They would have raised it because he's also the President of the Republic, but formally that issue still have to be raised with the President of the Republic of South Africa.
All right, thank you very much for your time. Zizi Kodwa, the national spokesperson of the African National Congress. Jordaan, just talking to us about some of the issues that were raised as part of the NEC statement that held a meeting over the weekend, but also the other important matter here that is being discussed. Of course, Jordaan, you'll also remember during the press conference that they did say that there was a special resolution on the situation that is unfolding in the country at the moment, and that is the issue of fees. And the ANC, I think, pretty much carrying the government line at the moment that free education will indeed be fought for and given to deserving poor students, and they still of the firm view that those who can afford must pay.